Andrea Balarati. I know I'm butchering your name, but that is in typical American fashion. But here he is, folks. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. I will pass on the butchering of my name, but that's
okay.
that's
Wait, Andrea Balarati.
Andrea.
Dude, I practiced this. I practiced it.
Wait. Andrea Balarati.
Balarati.
Balarati. There is an R in between.
Okay, I'm not even going to try.
Yeah, don't worry, don't worry.
Okay, so you have been, of course, you have been facing a lot of legal action, a backlash, just simply because you want your government to fight for the people that created your country. You want to feel safe in your own country, essentially. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not even racist. It's not a bad position. It's simply we don't feel like we're being represented by our own government, and they're allowing swarms of people to come in who are criminals, who are changing the culture, the society, and making it unlivable for the natives, essentially. And then they're using like the hate speech laws against you, and now I believe you're facing actual legal charges, which will come up in April.
Yeah. So essentially, what I do is, for those of you out there that are watching this that do not know me, I'm an identitarian activist, as stated in a video. Essentially, what we do is, through political action, through media action, we try and shed light on some themes, on some policies or whatever, and essentially denounce either the inaction of the government on different subjects, the main one being immigration. I'm from Italy, and everybody out there thinks Italy is some sort of trad paradise with Meloni in the government that was presented by the media as this right-wing figure. But living here, you understand that Meloni is another shell of the globalist elites, and she isn't really doing anything to solve the migrant crisis. And at the contrary, she is allowing for more illegal mass migration to come in, and the safety situation is deteriorating. Like today, there was this video trending of a big heist on the highway in Italy where they took this truck, blew it up, etc. Well, usually it's foreign mafias doing this type of stuff in the roads. So you can really imagine how the situation must be on the daily basis in train stations, cities, whatever, especially big cities and touristy cities as well. For example, I'm from northern Italy, so many of you know the city of Milan or Como, the Lake of Como, etc. Behind all this fashion, all this Italian presentability and beauty, etc., well, there is a lot of crime, there is a lot of stabbings, there is a lot of migration and all of that stuff. So what we do essentially is try and get the government to do its job, to make the streets safe for us. And the fact that we are forced to do it is in itself already something really ironic, honestly, because we are governed by the hard right, as the media presents it. But it's especially in these situations where activism is essential, because we all know that center-right governments, this type of right-wing governments that aren't really this fond of being that hardline on certain topics, they really need to be pushed towards action. Because I do believe, I still believe it, even though I've been doing activism for the last 7 years, 8 years, I still believe that in politics there is some members of parliament or some local politicians that really do politics because they care, because they want to do something for their people. And this belief pushes me to keep on doing what I'm doing, okay? And so you need to essentially push these people to put pressure on the government, etc., etc. I'll go back to this later, but doing activism, what you do is you expose yourself inevitably to the justice system in your country. And well, in Europe, you also have the European Court, the Human Rights Court, all of this stuff that's really unique to our continent, and it's very confusing, honestly, to us too. And you expose yourself also to all types of slander media. You know it, I think, as well, being exposed as you are. People will invent all type of stuff to try and bring you down, to try and make the public distance themselves from you. And one of these instruments they use is lawfare. Lawfare meaning like legal warfare, essentially. What they will do is they'll have some friendly association, for example, some political or not even political association. They will have this association, at least in Italy. I don't know how it works out in other places, but here they'd have this association present a formal complaint against the individual in question they want to shut up, saying, oh, in this video, this guy said this, this, and that. That's hate speech. Our association represents also the interest of migrants or of some other group. And as such, we present this complaint so that the police can investigate on this individual. And in case the complaint has some basis, well, you can fine this individual or send him to jail or whatever is necessary. So essentially, this law that they are using against me was introduced in the Italian legal code, penal code, in 2018, after some EU regulations came into effect, because you need to understand that for like legal, there is a hierarchy in the legal structures of countries. And in Europe, the European courts are higher than the national courts.
Okay.
So when Europe introduced this, let's say, crackdown on hate speech, or however they want to call it, the members of the European Union were essentially forced to introduce this type of legislation into their countries. Some countries didn't, and they get fined for that, but Italy did. And now, since 2018, you've had many people just being accused of this stuff, which has no real basis, because as you see, the law is so recent that it was essentially created out of nowhere. It was just a blatant abuse of power by the courts to try and shut up people like me, people like other activists that came before me. And this is really a problem because I'm 24 years old. I just graduated from university in Switzerland on economics, etc. And I still haven't found a job. And what's the problem? Is that I have no money. So what happens is they create this case. I can gather only so much money by working, by whatever. And they will try to drag these processes out as long as possible so that you essentially have no money left. Yeah, they try to drain you. And this case, in my case, this has been going on since 2023. So I've received the update saying that I will be sent to court just a couple of weeks ago. And the case is from 2023. So it took 3 years for them to just say, okay, you're going to court. So we will see how long it will take. Maybe even more and more years, other 3 years, 5 years. I don't know. We can know for sure.
And you're being accused of incitement to discriminate? That's the charge? Wow. Boy, that sounds awful. Lock him up immediately.
Yeah. Incitement to discriminate, which essentially means I say something is yellow, the other thing is brown. That's incitement to discriminate. Because discriminate, at least in Italian, I don't know in English if there is some hidden meaning. To discriminate means to make difference between two things. That's to divide two things because they're different. That's it. And in itself, ontologically, logically, makes no sense to just use it as legal basis to prosecute a person, because everybody could be prosecuted for that if you apply the logic, the linguistic logic of this definition, this legal definition. But what they're saying is, okay, there is not an element of hatred, because otherwise it would be incitement of hatred, but there is an element of discriminating. So it is an incitement to discriminate. And the discrimination is because in the video, I exposed the sentences. Essentially said that migrants come here, they do not integrate, and they commit crimes. And so this essentially means that multiculturalism is dead. It
Yeah.
cannot work. And this for them is incitement to discriminate. Like,
right. Yeah, that
really,
makes sense. I mean, I have the quote here. You said, "The bands of migrants which never integrated that now rule our cities are the proof of the failure of the multicultural project." There is
yep,
nothing violent about that. You're not calling people to hurt these people. You are simply
yep,
stating a problem that we have an issue with people from other cultures, war-torn countries that come to a civilized country, and now they are breaking the laws and they are becoming criminals. And why
yeah,
should we
but
have to deal with that? And
not
then you get
not
charged.
even war torn, because if you think about it, like Morocco or Tunisia or
Right.
Algeria or Egypt, like they're not war torn. Like people
Yeah.
go there for vacation. Those places are even beautiful, and
Yeah.
some of the cities in those places, of course, the average like income is lower, but the costs are so low that people aren't really dying of hunger over there.
No.
Like this is the legend. And
Yeah.
another thing is that there are like the people coming here usually is people they don't even want to have back because they're criminals over there. And so they
Right.
send them over here and then do not take them back, which is crazy to me because people are still brainwashed on this idea that was presented through the years that boomers bought as like as candies, because boomers really believe that media is the voice of truth. Also
Mhm.
over here, I don't know in other countries, but in Italy it's really like remembering what happened during COVID. There
Yes.
were like boomers just like this looking at television and believing everything. And so even with the migrant crisis, what they did was just take a picture of a child on a beach or take videos that were made from like some leftist NGO. Then you had the other videos showing that those videos where migrants were crying. There
Mhm.
were leftist activists going there with smoke to make them cry. I don't know if you saw this video. And so they were even fake. And then they took these videos, the journalists, they used them to create this narrative that all migrants escape from war, from famine, from plot, when essentially most migrants, like 90% of migrants, are just migrating for opportunistic reasons that
Right.
come either from an economic perspective to seek higher salaries or whatever, or from another darker opportunistic reason, which is the fact that here they can do whatever they want and
Yeah.
they won't be punished for that, which is
Right.
a great attractor for those kind of people. And that's, I believe, one of the reasons that we only have this type of migrants in Europe now. Like we
Mhm.
do not attract talent anymore. We just
Right.
attract those type of peoples. And
Right.
simply pointing that out in a country like Italy that should be right wing will get you a legal prosecution, a trial, and most probably even a conviction, because there is no mistake in it. The judiciary power is not independent. It's politically leaning left, even in a right wing country. That's what happens everywhere in Europe. I don't know if you're familiar with what happened to Dries van Langenhoven.
I've heard a little bit. I'm not super familiar though, no. But
Okay.
I assume it's the same thing, lawfare,
Yeah, yeah, on steroids though,
Yeah.
because he's in Belgium, and in Belgium, like it's blatant.
Mhm.
And he has 13 court cases, all for hate speech and stuff like that. And he was already convicted for memes sent on a private chat that he didn't even personally send. He was just in the private chat, but because he went to parliament, he was a political figure, he's very popular in his country, which is Flanders, northern Belgium.
Mhm.
They essentially convicted him at the highest court to 1 year in prison on probation. And the fine was something along the lines of like 40,000 euros or something like that. But the real issue is not the conviction, because you can survive that. It's that 13 cases and 7 years of legal fight meant 400,000 euros of legal expenses.
Right.
So, I mean, like what I'm living through is vanilla compared to what is going through.
Well,
And
that's how they do. I mean, even in the United
yeah,
States, that's how they'll break a lot. I mean, a lot of people that I know are getting sued from, public figures that they've criticized who are connected with
yep,
the FBI, and it's this long, drawn out process, and the legal fees is gonna break you, and then eventually you just have to give up because how are you supposed to fund a project if you have no money? And
exactly,
they do that
exactly.
with the civil courts here with suing people for this and that, and I'm sure, they just do it legally there. So what you are being charged with, that would be a felony, correct? So what would that entail
Yes.
if you got that charge? Would you go to jail?
So the maximum sentence for the crime he committed
Yeah.
is 1 year and 6 months of conviction in prison, excluding fines, which are always evaluated on who you offended, how harsh the offense was, etc., etc. So it's very deliberate. Usually, this type of processes to make you understand how unserious all of this is.
Mhm.
They convict you in first grade, and then they absolve you in second grade because the judge changes. The
Yeah.
first judge is like the same. It's the leftist one, etc. Maybe has contacts with associations, etc. You get convicted, so the media does their headlines. You have to pay even higher prices, higher fees because you go to a higher court. The process will go on longer, and there is a probability that you'll get convicted even at second grade court because the previous conviction will have some weight in the decision
Mhm.
of the superior court. So you have to go through all of it all over again in a more serious manner with the media pressure saying, oh, you see, you were convicted, and the people will just believe this first grade conviction, even if at a higher court, which holds more weight, of course, in a legal perspective, they will find you innocent.
Mhm.
And this highlights how really political this type of convictions are. For example, Salvini, you know Salvini, Matteo Salvini, etc.
Mhm.
When he blocked votes in 2019, he was accused of it was something like kidnapping, something like that. Like he held migrants on a boat
Mhm.
because they didn't have the permission to land, and for that reason they accused him of kidnapping like 100 people, something like that, and he was risking 6 years in prison. They found him innocent, but still the leftist like judges they went onwards to the higher court, and it looked like he was going to get convicted, but by some miracle he wasn't, even
Mhm.
though the judges there were politically leaning left. Something happened, I don't know. But like this is Italy. Like this is the right-wing country, the base country. Oh, look what they did at the Olympics with all that show.
Yeah.
The base woman with the flag going like this to the armored guy, etc. Yeah, that's just propaganda for other people. What's happening here is that it's the same as everywhere else. The real power is in the hands of these corrupt judges, which are either corrupt or are politically leaning. Because we had a um, as you had in the United States during the 60s, there was this social revolution where a lot
Yes.
of communists and leftists infiltrated the institutions. And
Mhm.
from this big infiltration, they managed to essentially get everything. Like they have the culture, they have the judiciary, they usually have sometimes the executive power and the legislative, but just by having media culture and judiciary aligned, they can rule the country without even winning elections, because the left here hasn't won an election since 2010, I think.
Right. Well, and I'm glad you're pointing out Maloney too, because everybody in the States celebrates her like she's this far right figure or whatever. She's the same as all the politicians that we have here.
Yes.
They've just gotten smarter. Now they're going to talk with our rhetoric so that we think that they're on our side, but they're not. They're globalists. They're in bed with all of these people, shills like the rest of them. Meanwhile, she's letting in more migrants.
Yep.
Like instead of it, I mean, letting them flow in, but they're legal.
Yeah.
That
I
totally
have
makes a difference.
interesting facts about Meloni because I was a member of the party of Meloni in 2019, actually, before being an activist. But then seeing how it worked in there and seeing what happened during COVID, because another thing people don't get about Italian politics is the fact that during COVID, we had a government with all the parties, because we have multiple parties, all the parties were in government except Meloni. But that was weird because it was from the beginning, like it was fake opposition. Like she wasn't really opposing the government of Mario Draghi. Mario Draghi was one of the like biggest figures in the European Union and also in the World Economic Forum, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And then in 2021, Meloni joined the Aspen Institute, which is, you know, this weird association of really powerful people like Rockefellers, etc. Her party gets money from Rockefellers, and you know there is all these links.
Yeah.
And so you can really paint a proper picture of what Meloni is, because she was planted there as fake opposition. Then COVID ended, and people naturally went to her, and now she went to power. In the beginning, she was even favorable to Biden, if you remember. There was that period of time where she was favorable to Biden, but not only Biden, also von der Leyen with this globalist, etc. And even now, she isn't really against von der Leyen or pro-Trump. Like she plays this middle figure. She tries to talk with everybody, which is, I mean, it's strategy. Okay, I can get it. But when you take everything into account and you see that she's going to let in 500,000 migrants in the next 3 years, legal migrants from North Africa, because not even India, she's just pointing at North Africa. And then she did all these weird agreements with Africa, like sub-Saharan Africa, because of her plan, which is called Piano Mattei. It was an old Italian doctrine to try to develop Africa through Italian investments. But all of this stuff amounts to essentially Italians having their wages lowered, their cities replaced, crime going up, and birth rates to plummet even lower than what they are now. Like we are at 1.1 child per couple, I think, right now. So it's really disastrous, taking into account the migrant birth rates. So it's even lower than that.
Well, and that's another thing they don't talk about. Like these politicians will say, oh, we're going to make it better for the everyday citizen. We're going to lower the costs and more jobs. But where are I mean, Italy's a small country, so that many migrants, that will decimate it. I mean, in a bigger country like in the States, 500,000, you know, it's like drop in the barrel. But there, that's insane.
Yeah, like if you also imagine that 300,000 roughly young people leave the country every year to seek jobs abroad, like you have a surplus of way more migrants than like proportionally you would have without this outflow of young people. Like the situation is even darker if you take that into account. And also the median age in Italy is so high, like we are 55-year-old, I think, median age in the country, which is, I think, one of the highest in the world with Japan and those type of countries. Even though we do not have that type of high-end, technologically advanced, developed society, because you need to consider Northern Italy, where I live, is one of the most productive regions in Europe, whilst Southern Italy is as productive as places in Africa. Like there is this strong divide between the two areas of the country. And so even with this, like in itself, disastrous situation for the economy, demography, etc., because we had also, because of that, strong internal migration, you can really see how disastrous even 100,000 migrants would be for the country. And
Right.
considering that the flows of migrants have to pass through Italy, even those that are directed to Germany or to France or to Sweden, well, the number is even higher, because then you have illegal migrants which cannot be accounted for because they're not counting them. They're just letting them come in and then go through and then go upwards through France to go to Germany or Sweden, where they have welfare, because migrants seek welfare. They do not seek better conditions. No, they seek welfare. That's what they want. And that's what they get in countries like the UK, Sweden, Germany, mainly. Those countries, that's the reason they are so overrun by migrants, because they get free stuff, and that's what they want. In Italy, you don't really get free stuff, because even Italians do not have money. And the funniest thing is that there are several interviews of migrants that come to Italy expecting to have everything for free, and they make videos to the media. Oh, we do not have Wi-Fi, we do not have a good hotel, etc., etc., which is so funny, honestly, because then you uncover the propaganda they are subjected to. I don't know if you know this, but there are several pages on Facebook, mainly, or Telegram, of these traffickers that popularize Europe as this essentially vacation like spot where you get free stuff, you get free women, you get everything for free, and migrants will buy into that and move en masse to the southern borders, so the coast of northern Africa, or also a strong migrant flow that's not denounced enough is the Balkan route through Turkey, because Turkey lets the migrants go. So there is this whole situation which us as activists are trying to shed light on and denounce, and the government will do nothing or even incentivize this type of ethnic replacement, or however you want to call it, because, for example, taking Meloni, these people are supported by industrial interests, industrial conglomerates that seek to keep wages low in order to maintain the profits high. And like, it's there. You can clearly see it, what they're trying to do. They bring as many people as they can in that accept lower wages and get free stuff, essentially, to support their living. So the natives here that have to pay naturally higher taxes, because we do not get anything for free, on the contrary, and we will get the same salaries of a migrant. And in this way, you cannot even think, not even like start to do it. No, you cannot even think of doing a child, of creating a family, of buying a home, land, because it's simply impossible here. We don't have the possibility to do it now.
Right. And that's another angle for leftists. They say they care about like humanitarian rights, but they're essentially, and we have the same issue, they're dragging people in for the cheap labor. They want to
Yeah,
drive the entire cost of everything where you still pay all the same prices, but in order to compete to get a job, you'll have to be willing to take a basically no salary just to even get a
yeah,
job, you know,
yeah.
and it's very, very messed up for the people. So another thing that I was reading was you've been surveillance. Now, for the record, you have not been charged with anything, but they have been monitoring you, they've been surveillancing you and hounding
Yeah.
you. Tell us a little bit about that, because that's very scary.
Yeah, essentially, when an investigation opens, we have a branch of the police that until the 60s it was called the political police, just to make you understand what this is. And then it evolved in the like special investigation unit, something like that. So they have the power to probe your phone remotely. They will try to insert a program in your phone to track your movement, your contacts, everything. And they will do it through your internet service provider. So in what do we have in America as internet service providers? I don't remember.
Well, we have Starlink, which is one, and Elon Musk is a defense contractor, so that should make all of us with Starlink feel very secure.
Yeah. So the internet service provider will provide backdoors to the government agency or investigative unit so that they can have access to some of the stuff that you have on your phone. In Europe, we have privacy laws. Fortunately, I don't know how. They're backtracking on them, of course, but when I was investigated before COVID, they were still in place, let's say. And so they could access only a limited amount of information. For example, they couldn't access my messages, or they couldn't access my they could access my call logs, so who I called for how long. They tried to intercept my phone calls, like I was some kind of mafia boss or something, because in Italy, to intercept phone calls, you either need to be involved in terrorism or you need to be involved in mafia. Like they asked the judge to do it, and as they asked, they tracked it, because you can see it. My lawyer asked for the whole process, and you can see what they did. And they did this, and they also like to my contacts and essentially try to, I don't know, build up some kind of criminal network I had. There was even the pizza guy that I called to bring me pizza in there with the name and stuff. So it was really crazy, completely crazy. Even my location, there was like pinpointed on the map that I connected to a certain cell tower, all of that, all because of those comments I made on Instagram. And before I was even formally accused of anything, because you need to remember the formal accusation comes when you are like sent to trial. Before that, it's all discussion, let's say. Okay, so when we investigate you, we find this, this, and that. Do you, like, they will interrogate you so that you can defend yourself and say, okay, I can explain this, I can explain that, etc. And during the interrogation, and this is another confirmation that the case is political, I was held in for like 4 to 6 hours for questioning, and they really pressured me about, oh, so you support remigration. You need to understand that at the time in Italy, there was no talk of remigration whatsoever. I was really the first in 2023. So they were like, oh, you support remigration, you believe in ethnic replacement, you're a conspiracy theorist, this, and that. You have links to this dangerous organization, which is Generation Identity, Martin Zellner, etc., etc. So they were really trying to pressure me about this. And of course, there's nothing really legal about it. And fortunately, I can handle pressure pretty well in those situations. But I think that if they take, for example, an 18-year-old who has no experience in this, they would break him and he would probably even admit to something he didn't do. So all of this amounted to really nothing, because I'm so comfortable, as you can see, because I know that what they did was try and build up this thing, but it will backfire on them. And it's already like backfiring on them, because they expected me probably to not even talk about this for optics, because when you get the label, oh, you are investigated for this criminal act, so you are a criminal, boomers and normies will start to distance themselves from you. But people now are so tired of the judiciary that it's not working anymore. Like, when I posted the videos, except for the opposition of, funnily enough, right-wing people mostly, but this is another thing. Weird situations going on in the country right now. Like, normal people were like, oh yeah, we support you. The judges, they are corrupt, etc., etc. So everybody knows this. The media is not being listened to anymore. after COVID, I believe, because that really demolished the trust of the people in the media. And remigration was made so popular at the beginning of the year that even if like this thing came out earlier or during the process of doing reason, it wouldn't have mattered because people want remigration. This is something they are denying as much as they can, but people want remigration because they need remigration to be safe, to have a future. And so they really cannot, even if they shut me up, even if they lock me up, it's too late. The idea is out there and you cannot stop that because people feel and people know that it's the only chance they have to reclaim their future, to reclaim their country, to reclaim the right to survive and to maintain the lands of their ancestors, the lands of their descendants.
Right. Well, I mean, I think the problem has gotten so out of hand with the migration, and it's happening in Australia, New Zealand, all over Europe, the United States. Basically, every country of white people is no longer looking like that. And it's gotten so obvious. It's not just the fact that people are now speaking out, but now a normal person, you leave your house, you go to town, you do your errands, and you are going to notice a demographic shift just
Yep.
before your very eyes. You don't need anyone to tell you. You witness the crime. You see how it's dangerous to even drive now because you have people that are reckless and don't obey the traffic laws, and you can see it for yourself. So like you said, there's not really any putting the genie back in the bottle. It's already out. People already know. But I'm glad to see that you're not backing down, because it is rough, especially whenever you have not just legal stuff, but when they give this illusion that everyone's against you. Because it is easy to forget that most people would support a common sense take like what you're presenting. It's not radical, it's not extreme, it's not violent. There's nothing wrong with it. It's very normal, and most people do support that. But what do you think is the future for Europe? Do you think there is a future? Do you think it's too late? Have
Really
people woken up too late?
easy question. um, I mean, Europe has faced wars, crises, than these. But the key difference is, like, for example, the Islamic invasions during strong cases of bubonic plague or economic collapse or all of that, when Europe was very divided and it was difficult to move around and all of that, we managed to unite and beat them. The only difference is that their governments, most of their governments, because there were betrayals and all of that, but most of their governments rallied their people and fought for their people. Right now, our governments, the people we perceive that have power over us, they are the ones enabling this. And it is on a scale and with a diffusion, like it's everywhere. Like even if you go to France, for example, even in the rural areas, small villages, etc., you will see ethnic replacement going on. So it's really on a scale, and in this manner of being so gradual and so underwhelming that people are not reacting anymore. Do you know the theory of the boiled frog? I think you're familiar with it. So
Yep.
you turn the heat up slowly, and the frog will not jump out of the water even when the water is boiling. The frog will boil alive. And it's what's happening now. So, do I believe there is a future for Europe? There could be a future for Europe if the current trend of awakening, because it's undeniable, like there has been a strong awakening of the people, if it amounts to some action, if you get this strong rallying of people which is happening only on social media, unfortunately, right now, excluding like some isolated cases like the London March or other like cases like that, the situation in the Netherlands, and yeah, mainly those two because there's nothing else going on. If we can get this interest, this attention, this discontent mobilized in a meaningful manner, which is not only political, but it gets like economic, cultural mainly, and all of that, then yes, there could be a future for Europe, because essentially when you get back your culture, your economy, you get this mobilization going, you can get a regime change in government, in all of these institutions, because you can put pressure. We need to remember that not all politicians were people going on Epstein Island doing all types of stuff, like being involved in those traffics or being corrupted. Mainly, politicians are opportunists. So they will follow these few people with a lot of power or perceived artificial power because it's simply convenient to do so. But when they will feel that the public has shifted, they will inevitably follow. Then, of course, there is the whole thing of, oh, we need to check who is truthful, who is not. Yes, but the point I'm trying to make is that we need a serious action that keeps at the center of their organization all of these facts, also the fact that we are facing a time-limited situation, like we don't have the luxury of time. Many countries like Germany or France or the UK, they are already on the verge of becoming in the next 10 years, being really relaxed about it, of becoming majority migrants. Like their population, their youth population is already replaced. Like it's already majority migrants. Also, for example, in all major cities in Germany, 60% roughly of newborns, or I think under 15-year-olds or something like that, they are non-native. And I think not even white or European or whatever categorization you want to use. My only concern right now, which is pushing me towards, unfortunately, towards the, I think it's too late front, is the fact that what if, it's a thought experiment and it's very dark, I know, but what if they are pushing migration not only for ethnic replacement and all of that, but to get people rallied not behind a, let's say, comprehensive solution like remigration, but behind some easier, instantaneous solutions like more controls, like cameras everywhere, police everywhere, special powers to the police, digital IDs, facial recognition, digital euro or coin or whatever, so that they can impose what they were referring to in 2020 as the New World Order, which is essentially a surveillance state. So that's really an issue, because if you only take into account migration, remigration, and ethnic replacement, you would have, I think, 10 years, let's say, to be safe, 10 years in Europe to implement remigration, after which you're replaced, game over. But if you take into account the surveillance state and its implementation, which is something they are already doing, well, you get only 3 years or 4 at most. Because, for example, in Europe, cameras everywhere, yeah, we already have that. Facial recognition, it's already there because the UK is already using it, and they just need a computer program and a legislative like signature to let it roll through and be applied. Digital ID is being produced right now in Italy. There is like this digital portfolio thing, and in Europe also. Biometrics, they already have your biometrics. Like there is people saying, oh, they don't have my biometrics yet. If you posted a picture online, they have your biometrics, so it's already there. Digital euro, it will be implemented in, I think they wanted to implement it in 2027. Chat control is something they want to roll through, and they will do it in 2027 or 8 or something like that. So, I mean, once they have all these instruments in place, and we already see that they want migration to keep going for whatever reason, how likely is it for a reaction to mobilize and build up? It becomes impossible. On the other hand, to not be so dramatic and negative, when the Soviet Union started to collapse, they rolled through the most draconian laws and like even hysterical control laws, and enabled all the instruments of really tight control because they were losing power. And the same, I believe, is happening now. So even if they're pushing through with all these control laws, using migration as the justification for that, using the lack of safety, the deliberate lack of safety as a justification for this, on the other hand, you can clearly see they're losing power, and they know it, and they're scared of that because culture is not in their hands anymore, thanks to internet, thanks to X that did really a great job at enabling free speech, even though Musk is involved in all of that. At least we can give him that free speech is enabled on his platform. And also, people have lost trust in the established system because of all that's happened. So, yeah, it's a 50-50, let's say.
Yeah.
Europe has a future 50-50.
I mean, unfortunately, that's the same way everywhere. We're about 10, 20 years behind you guys because all the same stuff is happening here, but it's just happening a little bit slower because we still have guns. Not that that really does anything, but it is somewhat of a deterrent.
Yeah,
But
it's
I think that
policy.
it is a good point though, because that's what they have been pushing, the digital IDs, the police state. And you know, anytime that there's a shooting, like the Bondi shooting that happened in Australia, they always pick up on that and clamp down, instate more laws, take away more freedoms. But like you said, on a hopeful note, because we don't want everyone to just be like, okay, well, this is it. On a hopeful note, maybe that means they have to do that because people are waking up. But tell people where they can find you, support you, because you obviously need it. You're a young guy just out of college. I think that's hard for anybody. And they're trying to just destroy your life because you won't stop speaking out. But how can people support you, find you, follow your work?
So I have an Instagram account, I have an X account, and I have a YouTube account. I honestly hate social media, but we are forced to use it because otherwise our voices cannot be heard. And it's all the same handle, which is Balarati Andrea, even though you can pronounce it.
Hey, I will include it. I will include it in the link.
And I have a GiveSendGo to pay my legal expenses, which I am estimating to be around, I think, 20,000 or something like that. So I've started with 10,000 to really prepare. But again, just finishing up what I said earlier, even if there is no hope, I believe we must fight. I believe we must still speak up and go on and try to do something. Because one of the reasons, for example, in my perspective, what I'm doing, one of the reasons I do it is that since I want to have children, I will one day be faced with the talk, let's say, with my child, telling him what happened to our society, why everything is so bad out there. But I want to be still able to look myself in the mirror and him in the eyes saying, I tried, I fought, I tried to do something, because this is what our ancestors did when they went to battle against the hordes invading Europe. They didn't think they were going to make it. They didn't think they were going to save Europe. They had faith as I have faith, as I think you have faith, that they could do it, that there will still be a future after them. And they rode out and met those people in battle because they were faithful. They could do it even when there is no hope, even when everything seems dark. We still need to go, we still need to ride onwards, and we still need to fight. Because otherwise, the ones that will not forgive us will be our sons and ourselves.
Yeah, well, basically what I would take back from what you were saying was if there is hope because they would not be fighting you so hard if they did not see you as a threat.
Yeah.
So the fact that they keep on attacking you and other people that speak out, that should give people hope. I know it feels very black pilling and like it's all over, but it's not. That's how they want you to feel so that you stop fighting because obviously it's posing a threat. But I appreciate what you're doing. I really support the work of you guys, and we take it for granted here because we have free speech. You know, now
Yeah.
that's getting they're clamping down on that as well. But it's easy to take for granted being able to speak online and not be worried about having police show up at your doors like what you guys have to deal with. But I appreciate it and keep on the good fight. And we will support you in any way we can.
Thank you. Thank you.